For hundreds of years, a strange mystery floated through the galaxy, a quiet fear that no one liked to speak about too loudly. It was about one small blue planet hidden in a quiet arm of the Milky Way, Earth. Every few decades, someone tried to go there. Sometimes it was explorers. Sometimes it was conquerors who believed they could take over a simple, developing world. But none of them ever came back. At first, other civilizations didn't care. They said, it's just bad luck. Space is full of dangers. Some said maybe those fleets fell into a black hole or got caught in solar storms. But when it kept happening again and again, entire fleets vanishing without a trace, people started to whisper. The galaxy is old, and stories travel fast. Soon no one even said the planet's name out loud anymore. They called it the Silent World, a cursed place where technology fails and minds go mad. A place that eats ships and keeps their memories. The Galactic Council, a group of the most advanced civilizations, finally decided they couldn't ignore it anymore. One of their brightest scientists suggested sending a small team, not to invade but to observe. If Earth was truly cursed, they would find out why. If it was just a rumor, they'd finally end the fear once and for all. So they built a small, silent ship called Virex 7. It was covered in shadow plates that bent light and sound, making it almost invisible. Its engines could cross half the galaxy in days. It was the most advanced craft ever built for quiet missions. The crew chosen for this mission were the best from different worlds. Each one trained to survive where others would fail. They didn't believe in ghost stories or myths. They believed in science. Their commander stood before the viewing glass as their ship left orbit. He looked at the stars, glowing like tiny sparks of truth, and said, "We find the truth, nothing else." The others nodded, confident. After a long journey through dark space, the blue planet came into view. It looked peaceful from afar, a swirl of clouds and oceans. No sign of danger, just another world full of life. But then something strange began to happen. Their instruments flickered. The readings made no sense. Energy waves rose and fell like a heartbeat. There was radio noise everywhere. Millions of voices, millions of signals. Human voices, music, news, laughter. It was as if the planet was alive and talking all at once. One of the crew members tried to adjust the frequency. Another checked the power systems. Everything worked, but nothing worked correctly. Their cloaking system glitched. Lights blinked in random patterns. It felt like the planet was aware of them. Then came the moment that changed everything. Across every screen, in every language known in the galaxy, a message appeared. The same words. You shouldn't have come. No voice. No face, just the words glowing softly. At first, the crew thought it was some kind of data interference. They tried to delete the message. It came back. They powered down the system. The words appeared again, this time written across the viewing glass itself like condensation forming from nowhere. A quiet chill filled the ship. No one spoke for a long time. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. And somehow the crew knew it was not from a machine. It felt personal. They decided to continue. They couldn't turn back now. If this world really hid something, they had to see it. So they entered orbit. From space, Earth looked alive in a way no other planet did. It wasn't just the colors. It was the movement. Clouds spun in perfect storms. Lights from human cities glowed like stars. Oceans shimmered with energy. Even the smallest parts of the atmosphere seemed to pulse with a rhythm. Like a living organism breathing, one of the crew whispered, "It's..." Watching us, the commander didn't reply. He only stared at the blue curve below. They decided to land in a quiet area, away from human settlements. A desert, empty, quiet, safe for study. Or so they thought. As they descended through the atmosphere, their sensors went wild. The air was thick with radio waves, invisible noise, and strange electric pulses. The humans were constantly sending signals into the sky, messages, data, sound. It was like flying through a storm made of thoughts. When the Virex 7 finally touched the ground, the crew felt an uneasy calm. The sand was warm, the air dry. The planet's surface looked simple, but their instruments said otherwise. The soil had traces of foreign metals, the kind used in alien engines. They found radiation patterns that matched old interstellar weapons. The commander ordered the team to scan deeper underground. What they found left them silent. There were shapes, metallic remains, hidden beneath the sand. Old wreckage, alien wreckage. They dug a little and part of a hull became visible. The markings were from a species that disappeared 100 years ago, an entire empire gone, and their last known mission? To conquer Earth. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The commander said softly, "Maybe this is one of the lost fleets." But it wasn't just one ship. As the scanners widened, the ground lit up with hundreds of signals, pieces of metal, engines, weapons. An entire graveyard of ships buried beneath the planet's surface. The air suddenly felt heavier. No one wanted to speak. It became clear that Earth was not just surviving invasions. It was keeping what was left behind. One of the scientists pointed at a strange structure in the distance. It looked like part of a mountain but had smooth metal sides. The team decided to check it out. When they approached, they saw that it wasn't a mountain at all. It was a part of a giant ship, melted and fused with the land. The markings were unrecognizable, but the technology inside was active, faintly humming. How can this still have power after so long? Someone asked. Then something unexpected happened. A small machine, round and metallic, rolled out from the ship's shadows. It moved on its own, scanning them with a blue light. It wasn't human technology, but it had been changed, modified. It projected a small hologram, a human figure made of light. The image didn't speak, but its presence alone said everything. Humans had found the wrecks. They had studied them. They had learned from them. The team backed away slowly. Their translator device tried to read the hologram's energy signature, but it failed. The human image simply looked at them and faded away. The commander finally said, "We are not the first to come here, and now we know why no one returned." They quickly sent a signal to their main ship in orbit, telling it to prepare for departure, but the signal never left the surface. Every transmission bounced back as if the planet refused to let it go. The blue planet had become a trap, a silent cage of intelligence, wrapped in mystery. As the sun set over the desert horizon, the crew stood there, staring at the strange landscape glowing in the distance. Earth didn't look dangerous. It looked beautiful. But in that beauty was something deeply unsettling. They realized that humans were not simply lucky survivors. They were the kind of species that turned every attack, every loss, into strength. Each invasion had left behind not just wreckage, but knowledge. And humans had taken it all. The team looked up at the night sky. From the ground, they could see thousands of small moving lights. At first they thought they were stars. Then their scanners picked up something impossible. Hundreds of small satellites circling the planet, all armed with unknown systems. Each one pulsing faintly, as if breathing in sync with the world below. One of the crew members whispered, "They know we're here." And as if to confirm it, their communication panel blinked once more. A single message appeared. This time the words felt colder. "You came to learn the truth. Now you will understand." The wind picked up, carrying fine grains of sand across the broken metal ground. The ship's lights flickered, and somewhere far above, something unseen was moving through the sky, quiet, deliberate, and watching. The Virex 7 crew didn't realize it yet, but their journey into the heart of Earth's secret had only just begun. The truth they were about to discover would change everything the galaxy believed about humans, and about fear itself. The Virex 7 floated in low orbit, half hidden by Earth's shadow. Its crew didn't speak much after what happened on the surface. They had seen enough to know this planet wasn't ordinary. Still, they were scientists and explorers. Curiosity was stronger than fear. The commander looked out through the observation glass. The planet below glowed with colors that shifted slowly through the night. City lights, storms, and something else. Energy readings flickered across the screen, showing waves that no machine could explain. It looked like the entire planet was alive, breathing energy in and out. "We will stay just long enough to understand," the commander said quietly. Everyone nodded, though none of them looked convinced. The communication systems were still failing. Every attempt to send a message to the Galactic Council was blocked. It was as if invisible walls surrounded the planet, bouncing every signal back. They could only watch and record. From the surface, humans lived as if nothing strange was happening. Cities glowed with life, cars moved like rivers of light, planes crossed the sky. The aliens expected to see chaos or violence, but instead they saw laughter, art, and everyday life. People walked in crowds, sharing food, talking, arguing, living. To the crew, it didn't make sense. This world should be too primitive to stop fleets, one said softly. They fight among themselves. They have no unified control. How do they win against us? No one had an answer. Then the science officer pointed to a location on the screen. It was deep in the ocean, a glowing mark of strange energy. Something is down there, she said. Something not human. They decided to send a small drone. It was a sphere made of silver metal, equipped with deep-sea scanners and stealth movement. The drone slipped into the planet's atmosphere and entered the ocean quietly, sinking through the dark water. For a while, everything looked normal. Schools of fish swam around, unaware of the intruder. Sunlight faded as the drone went deeper and deeper. But after a few minutes it found something, or a structure. It was massive, made of alien alloy, half buried in the ocean floor. The drone scanned it, and the crew saw symbols, not human. They matched the language of a civilization that vanished long ago. The same one whose ships were buried in the desert. The wreck had been repaired. Humans had been working on it. Pieces of the structure had been replaced with human metal, human technology, even lights. There were cables and small machines built with both human and alien designs connected together. The humans hadn't just found the wreck. They had learned from it. They had merged with it. The drone's camera turned, showing something that froze everyone on the ship. Dozens of smaller crafts were parked around the site. Underwater vehicles with shapes that clearly weren't alien, but weren't fully human either. They had been made using alien blueprints. The commander whispered, "They're using our own technology." Before the crew could analyze more, the drone's screen went black. Static filled the air, and then, through the noise, came a voice. "You're not welcome here." It was a human voice, calm, almost gentle, but with an authority that made every crew member fall silent. Then the drone feed cut off completely. They tried to reconnect, but the drone was gone. No signal, no trace, no debris. For a long time, no one said a word. Finally, the commander broke the silence. They knew the drone was not theirs. They found it, and they sent a warning. The others stared at their screens. The humans weren't even trying to hide anymore. Hours later, another strange thing happened. The ship's systems began picking up transmissions from Earth, human broadcasts. Thousands of them. Voices, music, laughter, and stories, and all in hundreds of different languages. They were full of emotion, joy, anger, hope, sadness. The ship's translator couldn't process everything, but the fragments that came through were powerful. A man's voice shouted words of courage from an old war speech. A child laughed. A song played about unity and survival. A whisper said, "We don't give up." The sound filled the ship, and for the first time the alien crew felt something strange. They didn't understand the words fully, but they felt the emotion behind them. It was raw, unpredictable, and deeply human. "Are they doing this on purpose?" one of the crew asked. The commander shook his head slowly. "No. I think this is just who they are." The crew began to realize that maybe humans didn't defeat invaders by power alone. Maybe it was something else. Something within them that no machine could measure. Later that night, the science officer noticed something unusual in orbit. Small human satellites surrounded the planet, forming a pattern. Each one moved in rhythm, exchanging signals that looked random but weren't. It was a defense system, invisible but alive, like a web made of light. "This is beyond their current level," she whispered. "They should not be able to build this." The commander said nothing. He was beginning to understand what the others never could. Humanity had grown by absorbing everything that came their way. Knowledge, technology, even the mistakes of others. They didn't destroy what they found. They studied it, rebuilt it, and made it their own. Then something unexpected happened. A message appeared on the main screen, not from humans, not from any signal they sent. It came directly from the planet's electromagnetic field, like a voice carried through nature itself. "You wanted to know why no one returns." The words pulsed across every display in the ship. The crew froze. They came as enemies. They left as lessons, and we learned. Then the message faded, and the ship fell silent again. The commander slowly sat down, trying to make sense of what they had just seen. The others waited for orders, but none came. He simply said, "We need to go." They started preparing for departure. Engines powered up, systems aligned. But as soon as they tried to leave orbit, the ship jolted violently. Every system went red. It wasn't an attack, and it was interference. like invisible hands holding the ship in place. "Something's locking us here," shouted one of the technicians. The crew tried every command, but the ship refused to move. From the planet below, they detected a network of satellites that had shifted positions. The satellites had surrounded the ship, linking together like a cage made of light. The commander knew this wasn't a coincidence. Humans were controlling it. They weren't destroying the Virex-7. They were studying it. The ship's computer suddenly restarted itself. One by one, all external cameras activated, without any command. The screen filled with live video from the surface. There were humans, standing in a large underground lab looking directly into the camera. They weren't smiling. They looked calm, focused, curious. They were watching the alien crew just as the crew was watching them. Then the human in the center spoke. The voice was steady and clear. "Every time someone comes here, they think they are discovering us. But we have already discovered them." The crew didn't understand how the humans were speaking their language, but the translation came instantly, as if it was part of the signal itself. "We don't destroy. We adapt, we survive. That's why they never return, because they become part of us." The transmission ended. For a few seconds, no one breathed. The commander whispered, "They've been waiting for us." Then, just as suddenly as it began, the ship was released. The energy field faded and the engines came back online. It was as if the planet itself decided to let them go. The commander didn't question it. He gave one order: "Leave orbit now." As the Virex-7 pulled away from Earth, every sensor picked up something new, a faint signal buried deep beneath the planet's surface. It was repeating a pattern, a beacon, and within that signal was the digital fingerprint of every ship that had ever disappeared near Earth. Their data, their technology, their memories, all stored within the planet. All still active. It was the final answer to the mystery that haunted the galaxy for centuries. The missing fleets hadn't been destroyed. They had been absorbed, turned into part of Earth's growing defense, part of human progress. The Virex-7 left without another word. No one dared to look back. The blue planet grew smaller and smaller behind them, glowing softly in the dark. Yet every member of the crew knew deep inside that the truth would follow them forever. Earth wasn't dangerous because of weapons or power. It was dangerous because of what it represented. A species that refused to stop learning, refused to stop adapting. A world that turned invasion into evolution. And now that the Virex-7 had seen the truth, the galaxy would soon know as well. But even as they sped through the stars, one last signal appeared on their console. Calm, almost friendly. "Thank you for visiting. We'll see you again soon." No one spoke after that, because deep down they knew the message didn't mean the humans would come to them. It meant they already had. The Virex-7 drifted in silent space far from Earth's orbit now, but the crew couldn't relax. Even though the planet was behind them, something about it still clung to their minds, a feeling that Earth was still watching. The commander ordered all systems checked. Engines worked fine. Navigation stable. Communication restored. On the surface, everything looked normal again. But deep down, the crew knew nothing was the same. No one could stop thinking about what they saw. Humans standing in that underground lab, looking straight into their cameras as if they had always known they were being watched. That image was burned into everyone's memory. They had come to solve a mystery. Instead, they had become part of it. For the next few hours, the crew reviewed all their recordings. But something strange had happened. A lot of their footage was gone. Data files were corrupted, sound recordings silent, visual feeds filled with static. Only small fragments remained, blurred images of the human faces and the strange symbol that appeared on the screen before their ship was released. It wasn't a language, not in the normal sense. It looked like a spiral made of smaller spirals, almost like a fingerprint, but it moved, pulsing slowly like it was alive. The science officer said it was an encoded pattern, not just a symbol. When she ran a deep scan, the computer picked up faint signals that matched the same rhythm as human satellites orbiting the planet. That meant the symbol wasn't just an image, it was communication. The commander looked at it carefully. "It's a mark," he said quietly. "A message for anyone who comes close again." The ship's lights flickered briefly, and for a moment everyone thought the power was failing again. But the systems checked out fine. Still, they couldn't shake the feeling that Earth had left something behind, like an invisible fingerprint inside their technology. Later, when most of the crew had gone to rest, the science officer stayed alone in the data room. She wanted to decode the strange pattern before reporting back to the council. The ship was quiet except for the soft hum of the engines. As she zoomed in on the spiral pattern, the lights dimmed slightly. Her screen filled with thousands of tiny lines forming moving waves almost like a heartbeat. When she slowed it down, she realized it wasn't random. It was a pulse, the same rhythm as a human heartbeat. Her hands froze over the controls. The computer began translating automatically, but not in any known code. It translated into sound. And that sound was a voice. "You're still listening," it said softly. She jumped back, her eyes wide. The voice continued, calm and almost kind. "We knew you would try to understand. Curiosity is what connects us all." The screen flickered again, showing a faded image. Not clear, not sharp, but recognizable. It was Earth spinning slowly in darkness. The same blue glow, the same living pulse. The voice went on. "Others came with fear and pride. They left in silence. You came with questions. You will leave with answers." The science officer sat frozen, unable to look away. It was as if the planet itself was talking to her through the machine. Then the image disappeared and the system shut down completely. She tried to restart it, but it didn't respond. Only one thing appeared on the screen before it turned black. "Remember what you saw." The next morning, when she told the commander what happened, he didn't doubt her. None of them did. They had already seen too much to question anything now. They decided to continue the journey home back to the Galactic Council. They needed to share what they'd learned. But the commander wasn't sure what to say. How do you explain that a supposedly primitive world speaks through machines, controls satellites with thought, and absorbs alien technology like food for growth? As they traveled, they began to notice small changes on their ship. Tiny things, easy to miss at first. Some systems ran smoother than before, and too smooth. Energy consumption dropped by 20%. Navigation recalibrated automatically, even when no one gave the command. The engineer checked the system logs. There were new code fragments inside the ship's central core, written in a hybrid language of alien and human data patterns. The crew hadn't written it. It had written itself. He called the commander in silence and pointed to the screen. The new code blinked slowly as if alive. At the bottom, one line appeared repeatedly. "Shared knowledge is survival." No one could explain it, but they all knew what it meant. Earth had left something behind inside their ship, not as a threat but as a gift, or maybe as a reminder. As the Virex 7 entered deep space, they passed near an old communication relay station, one of the abandoned ones, left floating decades ago. It was supposed to be dead, but as their ship approached, the station suddenly came to life. Its antennas turned slowly, locking onto the Virex 7, and then it transmitted a signal. The commander watched as a new message appeared across the display. Not from the station, not from any known database, but the same style of text that Earth had used. "The galaxy thinks we are weak. That's why they keep coming. But strength is not what you think it is," the text changed. "They came with weapons. We answered with understanding. They brought destruction. We brought learning," the commander whispered. "It's continuing the message." The final line appeared slowly, almost as if written by an invisible hand. "Now the galaxy is our classroom." The station powered down again, returning to silence. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. No one spoke, but the same thought echoed in every mind. Earth had reached beyond its planet. It wasn't just defending itself anymore, and it was spreading something. Knowledge, influence, awareness. For the rest of the journey, they avoided using the main computer. It had started responding in ways that made them uncomfortable, answering questions before they were asked, adjusting temperature automatically, and sometimes displaying random Earth images. When they finally arrived near the Council's main planet, they were met with silence. No greeting signal, no control message, only static. The commander tried multiple channels, but the result was the same, blank noise. He sent a probe to check the relay beacons. They were working perfectly. It was as if the Council was ignoring them. Then a message appeared on the ship's internal screen, not from outside, but from within. 3 simple words. They already know. The crew froze. How? the science officer whispered. No one had an answer. The commander finally said, "Prepare landing anyway. We'll speak to them in person." When they landed on the council's base world, everything looked the same. Bright towers, shining streets, ships in the sky. But as they walked into the main hall, something felt different. The atmosphere was quiet. Too quiet. The council's high representatives were already waiting for them. They didn't look angry or surprised. They looked calm. Before the commander could speak, the head of the council raised a hand. "You've seen Earth," he said. "Now you understand," the commander frowned. "You knew?" The council leader nodded slowly. "We've always known. We just needed someone else to confirm it." The crew looked at each other in disbelief. The leader continued. "Many have gone to Earth. None returned because they became part of something larger. They didn't die. They changed." The room fell silent again. The commander asked, "Then why send us?" The leader smiled faintly. "Because every time a new species meets them, humanity learns something new. And now they've learned from you." No one moved. The realization hit them all at once. They weren't just observers. They had been part of Earth's plan all along. When the meeting ended, the crew returned to their ship in silence. As they boarded, the science officer noticed the same glowing spiral symbol etched faintly onto the side of the ship. It wasn't there before. It shimmered softly under the lights, pulsing like a living thing. She touched it gently. It was warm. The commander looked at it and said quietly, "Earth leaves its mark on everyone." That night, while the ship floated quietly in orbit, the crew gathered in the main deck one last time. They talked about what they had seen, the buried ships, the underwater structures, the human voice that spoke through their own technology. But more than anything, they talked about what they felt. Humans were not the strongest. They weren't the oldest or the most advanced. But they had something no one else did, an endless hunger to understand and adapt. They didn't destroy knowledge. They transformed it. They turned pain into progress and defeat into discovery. And that was why no one ever returned from invading Earth. Because every invader became a teacher, and Earth, the eternal student. As the commander looked out into the vast darkness of space, he knew one thing for certain: the universe had just shifted. From this moment on, every world would think twice before turning its gaze toward that small blue planet. And somewhere, deep within the stars, a quiet voice seemed to whisper once more, "You shouldn't have come. But now that you have, you'll never really leave." The air around the landing site had grown colder, heavier. Even though the sun was up, the crew of the Virex 7 felt something strange, a sense that the planet itself was watching them. The human world looked alive in a way they couldn't explain. Machines hummed in the distance. Strange signals passed through the air. And even the wind carried whispers of forgotten stories. Among the alien crew was a telepath, quiet, cautious, and more sensitive than the rest. His kind could sense emotions, memories, and even traces of thought. Normally, he avoided using his gift because the noise of other minds could be overwhelming. But Earth felt different. It was like a storm of voices, millions of thoughts overlapping, yet each one fierce and alive. He finally focused on one single human presence, a mind close enough to touch. He expected confusion, fear, maybe curiosity, but what he felt instead shook him deeply. It wasn't fear. It was strength. A burning energy that refused to bend or surrender. Through his vision, he saw flashes of human life. A man fixing an old machine in his backyard, refusing to give up even when it failed 100 times. A woman sitting in a small lab studying the wreckage of a crashed alien drone, determined to understand how it worked. Children in classrooms building small versions of the same technology that had once belonged to alien invaders. Every image carried the same message: humans learned fast. And they never stopped learning. The telepath staggered back, gasping. The others asked what he saw, but he couldn't find the right words. How could he explain a species that felt pain but turned it into power? How could he describe a race that turned every loss into a lesson? He only said, "They are chaos, but they grow through it." While the crew investigated the ruins around them, they discovered something even stranger. The structures built from alien metal had been mixed with Earth's own materials. The design was rough but smart. Whoever worked here had figured out how to blend two kinds of science, alien and human, and make it work. They found generators powered by strange hybrid energy sources, communication devices that used both human radio frequencies and alien wavelengths, and defense systems far more advanced than expected for such a planet. It was clear. Humans had taken everything they could from the fallen invaders and made it their own. The ship's engineer examined a broken drone, shaking his head in disbelief. "They didn't just copy our designs," he muttered. "They improved them." The telepath touched the surface of the metal again. Instantly, another wave of vision struck him. He saw human scientists standing over glowing alien reactors, pulling them apart piece by piece, smiling as they made sense of what once looked impossible. He saw human soldiers training with weapons rebuilt from alien parts, learning faster than any species he'd ever encountered. And he saw governments, secret labs, and underground bases working in silence, all preparing for the next visitor from the stars. But one thing stood out among all the images. Humans were not united. They argued, they fought, they competed with each other constantly. The telepath couldn't understand it. In his world, such division would mean weakness. Yet on Earth, it seemed to make them even stronger. The struggle between them created something unique, a constant drive to do better, to win, to survive. He realized something terrifying. Humans didn't need to conquer the stars. They only needed time. Given enough of it, they would match and then surpass every other civilization in the galaxy. Back at their temporary camp, the aliens discussed what they found. The commander argued that humanity was still primitive, just clever scavengers who had benefited from accidents. But others disagreed. They pointed out how no other world had ever adapted so quickly after contact with alien forces. The humans had taken every defeat and turned it into an advantage. One of the crew members played back a recording of human broadcasts. The sounds of their cities, their music, their voices filled the air. It was a strange mix, beauty and chaos together. There were songs about hope, films about survival, stories about courage in the face of impossible odds. Even in their art, humans celebrated resistance. They didn't just survive, they thrived under pressure. The telepath sat quietly, still trying to understand the emotion that kept echoing in every human mind. It wasn't just survival, it was defiance. A refusal to accept that something stronger had the right to rule over them. He had sensed similar feelings before in other species, but never like this. For humans, it wasn't just instinct, it was identity. He shared what he felt with the crew. "They don't fight because they want to win," he said slowly. "They fight because they refuse to lose." Silence filled the room. Every alien there knew what that meant. A race that refused to lose could never be conquered. Later that night, the telepath went outside the base alone. The sky above was filled with stars, bright and endless. He reached out again, connecting to the planet's mental field. This time, he didn't resist the flood of thoughts. He let them in. He felt the joy of children learning, the pain of people working through hardships, the hope of scientists reaching for impossible goals. Every feeling burned like fire. And beneath it all, there was something even more powerful, a deep, collective memory of struggle. He saw flashes from Earth's history, wars, disasters, loss, and each time, humanity rose again. No matter how hard they were hit, they found a way to rebuild. Other species would have perished long ago under such conditions. But humans had a strange gift. They evolved through adversity. Pain was their teacher, not their weakness. The telepath's vision shifted again. Now he saw the future. Humans standing beside machines built from alien technology, launching ships far beyond their solar system. They weren't waiting for help or approval from the galaxy. They were coming. Slowly, silently, but surely. He fell to his knees, trembling. "They are coming," he whispered to himself. When he returned to the group, his eyes looked different, older, almost haunted. The commander asked what he saw, and he answered quietly. If the rest of the galaxy knew what's growing here, they'd stop sending fleets. Not because humans are dangerous now, but because one day, they will be. No one spoke after that. Each alien sat lost in thought, listening to the distant hum of the Earth's machines. It was a living world, raw, unpredictable, but alive in a way none of them had ever seen before. As night fell, the camp's sensors picked up faint signals again. For a moment, they thought it was interference, but when they traced the frequency, it led to something underground. A hidden human facility active and watching them. The realization sent a chill through everyone. Humans weren't just experimenting with old alien tech. They were monitoring everything, even this new arrival. They already know we're here, the commander said quietly. The telepath nodded. They've always known. They just wanted to see what we'd do. That night, the crew couldn't sleep. The air felt heavy with a quiet, invisible warning. They had come to study Earth. Instead, they were the ones being studied. From the shadows beyond their camp, small lights flickered. Tiny mechanical eyes, scanning, recording, learning. The humans weren't attacking. They didn't need to. They were observing just as the aliens had planned to do. The telepath closed his eyes and tried to connect one last time. He wanted to understand the truth of this world, to see the heart of humanity. But what came back wasn't words or images, it was a feeling. A message without language, powerful and direct. We remember every lesson, every ship that came before you. We don't forget, and we don't stop. He opened his eyes, shaken. The rest of the crew looked at him, waiting for an explanation, but all he said was, "They're not afraid of us. Not anymore." Somewhere deep inside the Earth, machines built from alien parts hummed in perfect rhythm. They were silent now, but they were ready. And as dawn broke, painting the sky gold, the crew realized something that none of their people back home would ever believe. Earth wasn't the dangerous planet because of its weapons or armies. It was dangerous because of the people who lived there, people who learned, adapted, and never forgot. People who looked at the impossible and said, "Let's figure it out." People who, no matter what came from the stars, would always find a way to rise higher than before. The crew of Virex 7 woke to the sound of alarms. The ship's sensors were flashing red, one after another, warning of interference from every direction. At first, they thought it was a system error, something caused by Earth's strange magnetic field. But soon it became clear that something else was happening. Their ship was no longer free in the sky. It was caught suspended by an invisible force. Around the planet, something vast and silent had come alive. The navigator looked at the display in disbelief. "There are thousands of small satellites," he said. "But they're not broadcasting anything, they're watching us." The commander ordered the engines to fire, trying to break free. Nothing happened. The ship trembled, but the pull was too strong. It was as if unseen hands were holding them in place. A signal blinked across the main screen, static at first. Then a voice, steady, calm, and human. "You all wanted to know what happened to the others." The sound filled the room. No one spoke. The translator confirmed it wasn't a recording, it was live. Someone on Earth was talking to them directly. "They came here full of confidence," the voice continued. "They thought we were small, weak, easy to control. They thought they could take what they wanted and leave. But Earth doesn't forget. We learned from every ship, every weapon, every mistake they made." The telepath closed his eyes, feeling the weight of that voice. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It was simply sure of itself, like someone who already knew how this would end. Outside, the stars disappeared as a network of faint lights formed around the ship. The invisible satellites were connecting, forming a vast web of energy. Humans had built a trap not with aggression, but with intelligence. The commander tried to respond. "We mean no harm," he said. "We came to observe, to understand." There was a pause. Then the voice returned, softer now. "And now you understand. No one who comes here leaves unchanged." Every system on the ship began shutting down, lights dimming, engines silent, communication lost. It wasn't destruction. It was precision. Whoever controlled this technology knew exactly how to disable without damage. The crew panicked. Some rushed to manual controls, others tried emergency power, but the ship ignored them. It was no longer theirs to command. The telepath felt a new presence in his mind. Not one voice, but many, millions of them. It was humanity itself, a sea of connected minds speaking as one. It wasn't a hive. It was something different, something more alive. He saw flashes, scientists working deep underground, soldiers standing guard beside machines built from alien metal, families watching the night sky, knowing they were being watched back. The planet was awake. The voice spoke again. "You studied us for years. You thought you could predict us. But you can't measure a spirit. You can't quantify a will that refuses to break." The telepath whispered to the commander. "They're not just defending themselves. They're testing us." Outside the viewport, one of the satellites drifted closer. It looked simple, gray, small, but it pulsed with quiet energy. On its surface, alien markings glowed faintly, the same markings from ships that had vanished long ago. The crew realized what that meant. Those satellites were made from the remains of the fleets that came before. Humanity had turned every fallen invasion into armor, every defeat into a new layer of defense. The commander's voice cracked slightly. "What do you want from us?" The answer came instantly. "We want you to remember." Suddenly the screens filled with images, memories of all the ships that had vanished. Wrecks in the oceans, buried metal in deserts, silent crafts orbiting like ghosts. But instead of being destroyed, they were being used, rebuilt, integrated into something larger. The humans had been collecting everything, not for war but for knowledge. They had studied every technology, learned every weakness, and they had done it quietly, letting the galaxy believe they were still primitive. "We never started this," the human voice said, "but we finished it. And now we know how to stop it from happening again." The ship trembled as a soft hum filled the air. For a moment everyone thought this was the end, but instead of exploding or falling apart, everything went dark. Silence. When the lights returned, the Virex 7 was floating above the planet, free again. The trap was gone. Every system worked as before. But one thing had changed. The ship's communication logs had been erased. All navigation data, all records of what happened, gone. The telepath checked his mind link systems. Even his own memories felt blurred, like someone had carefully brushed away the details. He could remember feelings, flashes, the sound of the human voice, but not faces, not coordinates, not exact moments. They had been allowed to live, but they couldn't take proof of what they had seen. As the ship turned away from Earth, the commander felt a strange mix of relief and fear. The planet looked calm again, spinning silently in space, blue and peaceful. But they all knew the truth. Beneath that calm surface was a mind sharper than any they had ever encountered. The telepath spoke softly, almost to himself. "They let us go because they want the story to spread." The others looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "They want us to tell the galaxy," he said. "To tell everyone what happens when you come here." The commander stared out at the shrinking planet. "And what happens?" The telepath hesitated, his voice trembling just slightly. "You learn why no one ever returns." As the ship drifted farther into deep space, Earth grew smaller until it was just a dot among stars. But even from that distance, the crew could feel something, a pull, a weight in their thoughts. The planet wasn't letting go completely. It was still there, a quiet reminder in their minds. Hours later, when they checked their long-range scanners, something strange appeared. The Virex 7 no longer existed on the galactic tracking systems. To the rest of the universe, it was as if they had vanished, just like all the others. Panic filled the crew. "We're not on any record," one of them said. "It's like we were erased." The commander took a deep breath. "No," he said quietly. "They've hidden us. Not destroyed, hidden, and deep inside they all understood why. Humanity had turned every intruder into a secret, every enemy into a lesson, and every mistake into a layer of defense. Now they were part of that secret too." The telepath leaned back, exhausted. "They don't want revenge," he said. "They just want peace. But they've learned the only way to have peace is to make everyone afraid to take it away." Silence filled the ship again. No one argued. Outside the window, the blue planet shone softly, surrounded by a faint network of invisible light. It looked beautiful. Too beautiful to belong to a species that could outthink entire civilizations. But that was the truth about Earth. It didn't conquer with strength. It conquered with understanding. The telepath closed his eyes and sent one last thought into the void, a whisper to whoever might be listening. "We came to study you, but you studied us better. And now we know Earth doesn't just survive, it learns." The Virex 7 turned its engines toward the distant stars, moving away slowly. The crew didn't speak for a long time. They just sat there, watching the silent planet fade into darkness. Yet even as they left, one unshakable thought stayed with them all. That somewhere down there, among those billions of humans, someone was already preparing for the next visitor. Not with fear, not with hate, but with the quiet, unstoppable determination that made Earth what it was, a place that no invader ever truly left. Weeks passed in silence. The Virex 7 drifted far from Earth, deep into the emptiness between stars. The crew spoke little. They had all seen and felt something that words could not describe. To the rest of the galaxy, their ship didn't exist anymore. Their home signals couldn't find them, and the galactic network refused to recognize their identification codes. It was as if the humans had pressed a button and wiped them off the map. The commander stared at the control screen, trying to send one more transmission. Nothing worked. The ship's systems said the message was sent, but no one ever replied. Not their superiors, not their allies, not anyone. And then one night, a weak signal finally appeared. Faint, broken, but real. The crew rushed to decode it. The telepath concentrated hard, filtering through the static until a picture started to form. It wasn't a distress signal. It was a recording. The screen flickered to life, showing a familiar blue glow. Earth. The same view they had seen before, but this time, the image was being broadcast across the stars, reaching every corner of the galaxy. The voice that followed was calm and human. To those who are watching this, we have a message. Stop sending fleets. Stop sending spies. We are not your enemies, but we are not your prey either. The picture changed, showing human scientists in large underground rooms filled with alien metal and strange devices. They were rebuilding, reprogramming, turning fallen invader ships into tools for peace and defense. We never wanted war, the voice continued. But you left us no choice. You came here again and again thinking we were small. You took our air, our land, our people. You left us to rebuild in silence. And rebuild we did. The video showed machines rising out of the sea, once wrecked alien ships now working as part of Earth's own defenses. It showed children in schools learning about space, not with fear but with curiosity. It showed humans standing together, their faces determined, looking up at the night sky. We remember every lesson you taught us, every weapon you brought, every technology you left behind. You called us primitive. You were wrong. We learned from you all. The telepath could feel the emotion behind every word. It wasn't hatred, it was pride. A quiet, steady kind of strength that couldn't be broken. The video continued. Tell your people not to come. We don't destroy, we transform. Every ship that falls here becomes part of us. Every mind that arrives leaves changed. Earth is not a world to conquer, it's a lesson to survive. When the message ended, the screen went dark. The broadcast stopped, but the silence that followed was louder than any sound. Within hours, every corner of the galaxy began reacting. Some species panicked. Others dismissed it as human trickery. But deep down, every leader, every commander, every explorer knew the truth. No one could explain what had happened to all the missing fleets. And now they finally had an answer. In the following months, all plans to invade or explore Earth were canceled. The Galactic Council declared the planet a silent zone, forbidden for travel. Navigation maps marked it in red, do not approach. Yet even as fear spread, there was something else, a quiet curiosity. What kind of people could rise from so many attacks and still send a message of peace instead of revenge? On board the Virex 7, the crew watched as news from across the galaxy came through. Every alien world was talking about Earth. Some admired the humans. Some hated them. Some even wanted to join them. But one thing was certain. No one would ever underestimate them again. The telepath sat alone, thinking. He still remembered the feeling of the human minds he had touched. The warmth, the chaos, the endless hunger to grow. He could still hear their collective thought echoing in his head. We remember. We adapt, we rise. He realized something then. Humans had already changed the galaxy. Not through war or power, but through their spirit. They had shown what could happen when a species refused to give up. Later, as the Virex 7 drifted through the dark, the crew picked up another transmission. This time it wasn't a message to the galaxy. It was personal, addressed to them. You came here searching for truth, the voice said softly. Now you carry it with you. You're free to go. But remember, Earth doesn't send threats. We send warnings. Use what you've learned wisely. The signal faded, leaving only a soft hum behind. The telepath smiled faintly. Somehow, even across the endless distance, the human presence still felt close, as if the planet itself was watching them leave. As the ship began its long journey home, the crew tried to record everything they had seen, but every time they wrote or stored data, it vanished. Files deleted, memories scrambled. It was as if the planet had decided what they could remember. The telepath didn't fight it. He understood. Humanity wasn't trying to hide. They were simply protecting themselves. The universe had always seen Earth as small, unimportant, just another world. But in truth, it was the most unpredictable one of all. Years passed. The Virex 7 eventually made it back to the Galactic Council's territory. The crew was questioned endlessly. Every official wanted to know what had happened, what they had seen, what Earth really was. The commander told them everything, how they were trapped, the message they heard, the disappearance of their records. But most of the council didn't believe him. They said it was impossible for a single planet to erase an entire fleet from the galactic system. But then the telepath spoke. His voice was calm but heavy with emotion. They didn't need to erase us, he said. They only needed us to understand. He told them about the human minds, the way they thought, the way they refused to give up, the way they built strength from pain. When he finished, the room was silent. No one argued. No one dared to. After that, the council stopped sending ships toward Earth forever. Some called it superstition. Others called it wisdom. And yet rumors continued to spread. Small secret ones. That sometimes in deep space, lost ships would pick up strange signals, old distress calls, fragments of music, voices speaking human languages. There were whispers that some of the vanished aliens hadn't died at all, that they were living on Earth, working with humans, helping them build something new. A new kind of alliance hidden beneath the planet's surface. No one could prove it. But the idea alone was enough to keep everyone away. On a quiet night, far from any planet, the telepath stood by the observation window, staring into the black sea of stars. He remembered the blue light of Earth, the sound of the human voice, the feeling of that unstoppable will. He knew what others didn't want to admit. Earth wasn't the end of invaders. It was the beginning of something greater. He whispered to himself, they don't destroy, they transform. In the years that followed, the story of the humans became legend. Across distant systems, children heard tales of the blue planet that no one could conquer. Explorers told each other, don't go near Earth, you won't come back the same. And even the bravest captains, when plotting new star maps, left that small dot untouched. Not out of fear, but out of respect, because by then everyone knew the truth. Earth wasn't just a world. It was a mirror. It showed every species what they could be if they stopped running from struggle and started learning from it. It showed that the greatest power wasn't in weapons or numbers, but in never giving up. One day, decades later, another faint broadcast appeared. Not to the galaxy this time, but to those who remembered. We are still here. We are still learning. The stars are vast, but we will reach them on our own terms. That was the last message Earth ever sent. After that, silence. But for many across the stars, it wasn't an end. It was a beginning because deep down they knew what it meant. Humanity wasn't hiding anymore. They were preparing. Not for war, but for arrival. Someday the humans would leave their planet. And when they did, they wouldn't come as conquerors. They would come as teachers, as survivors, as a force that understood the price of peace. And so the story spread across generations. A story told in every corner of the galaxy. Once upon a time, countless fleets went to conquer a small blue planet. None returned. And when the galaxy finally learned why, it changed forever. Because those who invaded Earth didn't just disappear. They became part of something larger. They became part of humanity's story.